I'm still dissatisfied with my feelings over the Titanic sub thing. Please believe me, I tried so hard not to talk about this. I know everyone is sharing their opinion, and that's got to be tiring. If it's still June by the time this video is uploaded, then I'm sure you are sick to death about hearing about this submarine. I know I am. But even if it's just this one more time, I need you to hear me out. This story was set up from the beginning to encourage rash discourse, and it worked on all of us because the story was set up too perfectly. I realize that if you're revisiting this video or just you don't have all the context, this is a lot, so I have prepared a quick recap for you, and I promise it won't take long, it'll be done in a flash. Alright, hot. Alright, here's what you gotta know, fast. Basically, there's a private company called OceanGate that will offer you tours of the Titanic, the real wreckage on the bottom of the ocean floor. The submarine tickets were priced at around $250,000 or $250,000, meaning that just like the Titanic, it was priced for the extremely rich, and the lower class people were not invited on board. Well, I mean, they were, but they drowned. One day, all the headlines and media outlets start talking about one of the subs missing. 5 people on a tour just off the radar, gone, vanished into the deep blue. Since all of the news channels were jumping on it, it quickly became national news. And that is how people learned that the 5 people that were missing in the sub were billionaires and a CEO and just people who could afford a $250,000 ticket. Some people will say the economy is headed to shambles. Some people will say the economy is in shambles. Some people will say that the economy doesn't even know the word shambles yet, and it's coming. America is waist deep in a wealth problem right now. The price of rent and groceries keeps going up, and the basic living essentials aren't affordable to people anymore because the jobs aren't paying enough, and the jobs are firing people en masse. Those who aren't fired are being mistreated or overworked or taken advantage of, and no one's happy about it. Worst case scenario, your apartment kicks you out and you have to live on the street, but then the police are just gonna bulldoze your tent and take all of your things anyway. So basically, there's a loud pressure to be financially reserved with what you have to prepare for whatever's coming. As long as good old Joe Biden doesn't unpause the student loans, I think we're gonna be okay. Speaking of, instead of answering any cries for help, politicians and senators of all parties have done very little to treat the economy, most likely because it's benefiting the top 1% upper class who like it this way. If this recession turns into a real recession, then I'm sure we're gonna get through it just like we did last time, but it's gonna suck and it's gonna get harder to live, So you have a lot of people who are fueled up about these billionaires keeping all their money, and then the news that one of them was down on a Titanic tour and he got missing. He's not being treated nicely. The news kept insisting that it was a tragedy, but people just could not stop laughing at the irony. The sub was called the Titan. Right? That's when the non-stop jokes began, 24/7. Some good, some lazy, but everyone seemed to magnetize to the irony of rich, overconfident men using a cheaply made vehicle on a leisure mission to disturb a graveyard that was, of all things, the Titanic. But as you could probably expect, there were pearls about to be clutched at all these people laughing at death, So in answer to all of these jokes, we get this mini wave of older people yelling back at them about morals and ethics as if their age gives them more authority. And not to stereotype, but a lot of these people see themselves as righteous because they're older and feel the need to pass down knowledge condescendingly to younger users. And so they did not like that people were joking about the Titanic tragedy, so they tried to say, like, death is nothing to laugh at and all life is precious. And that did not land well. These people believed they had an automatic high road to shame these people who were making jokes into... I don't even know. The search for the submersible went on for about 3 days, and the non-stop joking and all the finger wagging just escalated along with it. The news was trying to make this like the Apollo 11, or 13, whichever one was bad. Eventually, we reached the point where the estimated air supply they would have had would have run out, and people assumed that even if they were found, they would be found dead. But out of nowhere, the Navy confirms that that did not happen. It was quicker. Now, this is according to whatever the recent official papers are, but the sub had apparently reached the Titanic down on the ocean floor, and a small weak spot in the sub caused the depth of the ocean to cave in, and they imploded. The implosion would have likely been a half of a millisecond of a fireball, and their death would have been instant and painless. This means that the sub reached the Titanic on day 1 and never left, meaning the 3-day news coverage was for nothing. The coverage, the news, the posting, it was all on this big emphasis of finding those divers. And let's get to the wrap-up. A submersible full of rich people is assumed lost, which leads to people making jokes, people preying on their recovery and trying to shame these jokers. The news milked the hell out of this story for 3 days, and we learned that the sub had imploded when it reached the Titanic's level. So that's all that you gotta know, fast. I hope it was fast. I'm gonna find out while editing. Before I even knew about the sub's disappearance, I accidentally retweeted something joking about it. It's saying, "Loving how angry the sea has been lately. Get it, girl." I thought it was just a good tweet, and it also counted as an in-joke with my Twitch subscribers where we have a bit going where I'm monotheistic for Poseidon. But I had no idea about what was happening. This is how I found out. Stepson of missing billionaire on Titanic submarine shoots his shot with OnlyFans model as rescuers scramble to locate his stepfather. Please keep my family in your prayers. Can I sit on you? Yes, please. Thank you, Pop Crave, the last bastion of true journalism. I know I can always count on you guys. To put you in my frame of reference, I learned about what was happening through tweets making fun of the situation. So my point of view was that of, excuse me, I was reading through all of these jokes trying to piece together what happened, and when I finally got a good idea, yeah, it was kind of funny. If I think of myself being in this situation, I'd be horrified. I sympathize with people being trapped somewhere. I've danced with claustrophobia, and she fucking bites. But from all these people embracing the humor of it all, I was always reminded that I would never be in that situation. It costs $250,000 to be on the submarine, and that money is probably an amount I will never reach in my lifetime. I kept scrolling through these and saw insightful posts, cheap jokes, even some good poetry, but all of that's a very reasonable reaction from my side of the internet. I got to see one of my favorite memes again, which really weirdly enough was like running into a college friend you haven't seen in a while. We heard that the UK was already jumping into this documentary about it even before the situation had been handled, which just sort of highlighted the let's capitalize on this situation of it all. One news channel had a live countdown for how much estimated airtime they had left, which was grim. I don't know what you want me to say, like, that's bad. But around this time, after all of that, I finally found my first contrasting opinion. It's okay to dislike billionaires and also feel concern and empathy for people who have gone missing and will likely not be found in time. Two things can be true at once. I don't like billionaires, but making jokes about accidental deaths will never be normal or funny to me. And after reading this tweet, I froze because it was using my sleeper agent nuance phrase, and I didn't know how to deal with it. Two things can be true at once. It's like one of the main pillars of being nuanced and empathetic, and I completely overlooked it. So this is when I hit my second feeling, which was, God, that must have sucked. So now these two ideas exist at the same time. Upper class people burning money on niche, dangerous hobbies is aggravating, and then deaths that I would like to not experience will get some empathy from me. And believe me, it was not life is meant to be treasured and death should not be celebrated versus the upper class are wasting money on their own hobbies when people are starving. It was this, but reworded and yelled, because it's the internet, and these were fighting words. You have the posts defending the sub, you have the posts making fun of it, and now you have when they clash. And those three make a bad cocktail. People were defending their opinions like they were their home sports team, right? Like, you are not going to take any criticism, so you come at them pretty intensely, which makes them want to defend themselves very intensely. The whole thing was intense, and obviously nothing got done because everyone was just yelling at each other. In short, we were not exactly having a Socratic seminar here. People were not willing to listen to anyone. You either believe in opinion A or you believe in opinion B. Which one are you? No, not that one. I hate doing that transition. The downside is that while two things can be true, now you have twice as many opinions people can attack you for having. People eat the rich. The ocean eats the rich and the people celebrate. People, no, not like that. Nobody deserves to die 2 miles under the sea. Billionaires deserve to die 2 miles under the sea. Some of the louder voices online from both sides were using this as a political checkpoint to kind of see what you actually believe in. You can wear merch that says down with the 1% or burn Wall Street, but when it gets down to it, that group of people is going to expect you to stand up for it. And some of the more extreme people on the all life is precious end of things will be willing to take yours if you disagree. And I'm just showing tweets, but this conversation is happening on YouTube and TikTok as well. I just only had the brain room for Twitter. I'm just one man. I'm just one man with so much eye strain.
I would never be 15,000 feet under the fucking ocean. Do you hear this nonsense, baby? Would you go 15,000 feet under the ocean?
No, there's just shark under there.
Right? Dude,
And comedy is not a gift to everybody, and sometimes you would come across a very lazy joke supporting this thing, which made it feel a little iffy. This caused a lot of people to swing back about family values and how all life is... Oh, no, oop, nope, see that? Fuck that, throwing the dog whistle, let's get the fuck out of here. The point is, making light of something that's going on is a coping mechanism and a fair reaction to have. But at the same time, it's going to look a little callous to the people who don't share those values. And I think especially because at this point the investigation was still ongoing and people had so many questions, the fact that this wave of people already jumped onto the joking bandwagon, I think it encouraged that other side to really give up hope on them. But we are all victims of wealth inequality, so I saw the jokes about the billionaires as fine. The saying comedy is just tragedy plus timing applies here. It's just a lot of people didn't wait that long and the time was pretty short. And because this was the topic of the day, I think everyone was rushing to make a joke. Some were lazy, some were insightful, some were relying on shock value, and others just weren't very funny. I'm going to put up my 3 personal favorite jokes right now. I can appreciate... I know what the images are. I can't see them right now, but they're in my head. I can acknowledge the humor, but, This thing was going along the meme life cycle timeline as expected until the middle of day 2, when we learned about Salman Dawood. Apparently a lot of news outlets knew this from day 1, but it just wasn't highly talked about, the fact that there was a kid on the submarine. And this is around the time when I noticed the people around me really starting to take note of that. Meaning on day 1, it was all about these 5 people are missing. And so everyone was making cruel jokes without knowing that one of those 5 people was a 19-year-old. He was actually the son of the billionaire on board, and the story is that he was terrified of going, and he didn't really want to, but he decided to do it for his dad because it was over Father's Day weekend. I don't know how true that is, but it does add another level of horribleness to this story. Everyone who was against the constant joking from the start saw this as their winning card, because now all of a sudden they got to turn this around and throw it in your face saying, you were making jokes where a kid died. Do you know how cruel and heartless that is? And I don't like that they were using this fact as like a guilt sucker punch, but at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that he was there the whole time. I'm torn up about the teenager. He was almost not on that sub, and he shouldn't have been. The fact that he did it as a gift to his dad, I don't know. I feel like that's not important, but it also says a lot. People will try to argue against this point by saying, he was still the kid of a billionaire. He was still probably rich and entitled. But those just bounce right off me. I don't even acknowledge them. He shouldn't have been on that sub. At this point, we still weren't aware that the sub had imploded and all of their deaths were instant and painless. All we knew now is that there was a kid on the boat that we were all making jokes about. You shouldn't have to have like a mirror copy of yourself in a situation to feel sympathy for them. But once you find out there is someone like you in there, it does change things. And then day 3 happens. This is when the news finally got people to look away from the sub and distracted them with another piece about a boat full of refugees and migrants, about 750 of them, drowning on the Greek coast. I've seen survivors say that the Greek tugboats were pulling them too fast. I've seen articles saying that Greek police said they didn't do anything. I don't know. I don't care. 750 people died. What I don't like is that then... I don't like motorcycles, for one. I don't like how this was then used as a weapon, because the media's obsession with this sub now had a vastly horrifying comparison. I'm not sure if these had happened around the same time, but it was very close together, and the fact that we were only hearing about the sub and not the boat says a lot about news media, American news media, USA. And there were people who knew about this refugee tragedy and were trying to tell us, but that can't compete against the algorithm of the 5 divers being missing. Like, one search term was just more popular than the other. This is also around the time that it became general information that the sub had imploded and they weren't adrift, waiting for rescue. They were gone. Again, thanks to whoever made this animation and leading scientist Hank Green for helping us know that this would have been an instant, crushing, millisecond death, and drowning or running out of air would have been a lot worse. It was put together that the sub had likely imploded on the ocean floor next to the wreckage of the Titanic because it matches up with an audio recording that the Navy has of a sound that could be interpreted that way. But that only gave rise to new questions. Why exactly was the news media allowed to run with this for 3 days when government employees likely knew that they were gone already? And people started demanding answers to why there was even a search party in general, especially one so expensive. Again, the economy. So it looks like the government withheld information just so the news could run with this. And even the company's lawyer seems kind of shady because they retreated a bunch and started blaming other people. And you start wondering if they knew too. And the entire time that this is happening, over here, stepson Brian, yes, the sit on me guy, is just gone balls to walls insane. Looking into it made me sad, but apparently he went to a Linkin Park concert the day this news dropped, and people said that was a little heartless, including Cardi B, and so he lashed back at Cardi B, and now he's tweeting the N-word. It just goes to show what clout does to a person. But that's just a weird distraction from everything that's important. Except that it kind of isn't, and it's permanently tethered to the real story because it's one of the only links that we have to these people. The point being, day 3 is when people are aware of all of these variables swirling around the subject. It's no longer something you can easily rush a decision on. There was just too much you had to consider. People who were making jokes started apologizing. Some people making the jokes made the jokes harder. There were political cartoons made about the drownings, but, like, thanks. I don't know what this does. People are laughing at the stepson in the replies of OnlyFans models, but they're liking the tweets, meaning he's only getting the attention that he wants, and he still is angry at Cardi B. And still, again, throughout all of this, there are some people demanding that you come up with an A or B opinion. You can either ignore everything going on or you can factor it all in. It doesn't matter. Do you think life is precious? Or do you think billionaires deserve to die? I have nearly drowned to death 3 times. The first 2 happened in swimming pools that were heavily supervised, so I wasn't in, like, real danger. And both were because of others using me as their own life raft, and I feel like that's not my fault. Either way, I don't think I've been a model Pisces with all the drowning I've been up to. But the 3rd time was completely different, and it was all because of how I reacted afterward. And when I think back to it, I'm not even sure I fully recovered. For my 13th birthday, my dad told me we could go on vacation to anywhere I wanted to, and I immediately picked Hawaii as my spot. For the record, now I am not 13 and a bit more educated, and I'm aware that tourism in Hawaii is just an extension of American colonialism there, so Hawaii, I'm sorry, you have seen the last of me. At one point, we went to a beach that was known for its larger waves, and we stayed near the shore to avoid any danger, but I was 13 and stupid. So I'm out there swimming, just taking in the moment. My parents are sitting up the beach, the sun's out, I'm feeling the waves rolling under me. Life is all good. After I feel a wave pass around me, I turn and see my little brother splashing a bit too much. I started making my way towards him to help. I should have called for an adult, I know, but I cannot stress enough, I was 13. Very underdeveloped brain there. I grabbed him to keep him above the surface, but as you can imagine, 2 tired swimmers becomes 1 sinking duo. And as soon as we weren't over that surface, a wave pushes and curls around us, and the undertow sucks us away from the beach. I have this painful memory of a single millisecond, like a still image of the moment. I'm clutching my brother's shoulder over my own. My other arm is churning the water, my breath about to exhaust, and just feeling frustrated. I could see the surface. The surface and the beach were right there. I could see the sun glinting off the waves just above me, and I just had to get there. And it didn't look far away from us at all, but still, with all my struggling, I still couldn't get us closer to them. And it was frustrating, knowing that my flustered paddling wouldn't stop anything about the weight of those waves tossing me around in place. I could suddenly feel the entire ocean's current, just the massive scale, weighed up against me, and I was minuscule. There was no chance for me. As far as I've been told, we got saved by surfers. I was well blacked out at this point, but 3 guys just apparently scooped us up and got us to shore where my parents ran to meet us all. And again, I have very little memory of that moment because I was probably yakking up seawater, but I missed them leave, and I wish I could have thanked them or said anything, or, I don't know, apologized. I wish I said something. But all of that, that's not even the main part of the story. Get this, we start trudging through the sand back to the rental car, our parents freaked out, and us still draining ocean, this traumatic event weighing over us, when I see this sign nearby, and I demanded that we all stop for a photo. I was just this half-drowned 13-year-old, brain foggy, body smashed up, a kid who nearly died getting swept to sea, but still, I was one half-drowned kid who just couldn't pass up on an ironically funny picture. I think the part of my brain that was still working knew that looking back on this photo was going to be extra hilarious once enough time had passed, and you know what? He was right. Like, come on, look at me leaning on it. I couldn't even stand up straight. You got the limp hand and, of course, the dorky waterproof watch and the shaded sunglasses just covering up my dead-eyed stare. I laugh at this photo every time I see it. It doesn't have a good memory attached, but still, just knowing the context, it's hilarious. I love it. You know, it's not a picture good enough to drown for, but I'm happy for that part of me that even after all of that, he saw an opportunity to be funny. Social media is literally designed to be polarizing. It wants you to publish your opinion, have people disagree, and then have both of you fight back and forth about it, because that's engagement. That's the secret sauce, guys. It's not like the special ingredient is sugar. It's fighting. I think that headspace has pushed people into thinking you need an A or B opinion because it's easy, but the easy answer isn't always the right one. And maybe there's an option C. Two things can be true, but sometimes three things can be. Or 5, 10, 20 if you're feeling crazy. Put up the viral gender meme image. This can also be your opinions. These billionaires went down there knowing the risks, and they had all of the responsibility if something went wrong. I don't feel much sympathy for them. And at the same time, I'm heartbroken that there was a kid on that ship. You can't change that I feel sad about part of it and ambivalent to another. Those are just my feelings. And I didn't have to share them. And I'm not going to fight you if you have different ones. These also aren't all of my opinions. I also think the CEO being on board, matching the captain goes down with his ship saying, is very funny. My heart fucking breaks for the migrants who drowned next to Greece because they were fleeing danger and they never escaped it. I think the people in charge of the decision to let them drown are haunted for the rest of their lives, and I hope this day is never forgotten. I think this is really funny. I also think it's shady that the government is being weird about the timeline. I feel kind of sad and melancholy that the real Titanic, the wreckage, was affected by all of this. And I think that it's both funny, weird, pathetic, and interesting that stepson is using this as a pickup line. What is in his brain? All of these tiny little opinions, all these thoughts, all these little things to consider, all make up my opinion. And it's just not going to be an A or a B. This may be just what I believe, but sometimes you can almost drown at a beach and want a stupid picture to commemorate it. Nuance is not always an A-B decision. Sometimes you have to take the entire alphabet into account. That's a stupid line. Who wrote that? Me? This person can think this, and this person can think this. They don't have to be the final thoughts on the situation, and they've also been diluted into tweets. which are never going to reflect the full range of emotions that you process. And it doesn't even need to get this specific, because your opinions are an individual process. Like, that's up to you. Death is one of the hardest things humans have ever tried to wrap their head around. It's been happening forever. And I don't think your final stance on it is going to be in a tweet. People want you to rush into these decisions, but I say don't. Put all screens down, just sit there with yourself, and for a minute, process what happened. And however you feel is fine. But make sure that you feel it. It's okay to feel conflicted. It's okay to take the time to think about things, and it's okay to process and figure out how you feel at your own pace. But don't let anyone on social media or by social media pressure you into thinking that you need to rush that opinion. I said pressure. Fuck. I told myself while writing this that I couldn't use the term pressured because it's too linked to the... It sounds like a joke, and it distracts from the message. No, that is my point. I'm at the end. So don't let anything forcibly encourage you to rush into not the moment's gone. You get it. Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Just the works. I am recording this after just finishing editing it, and oh my god, I'm sorry it took me 2.5 weeks to make this. I will be making shorter videos from now on for a bit. That being said, if you would like to see more of me, I'm on Twitch. I've been having fun there. Twitter and Instagram. At Kuncan Dastner. There's a bunch of new apps coming out. I'm not doing those. I'm truly too old. Thank you all to the patrons whose names you are seeing now. The Patreon is $1 at the minimum, so if you... I hate living near a road. Everything on the Patreon is accessible from the $1 tier, so if you got $1, come join, get your name tattooed on the video, watch a bunch of embarrassing outtakes. That's about as good as I can sell it. Side channel, movie channel, stream library, plugging myself. No, I'm truly grateful that you guys give me the time of day and you share some of your time with me, and I don't want to take that for granted, so thank you. Thank you for watching, but I mean it. Thank you. Have a good week. And if I don't see you before then, have another good week after that, because I said so. Take care of yourself. Take care of other people. I love you lots. Goodbye.